Good day. Welcome to study session 7. The reestablishment of English, 1200 to 1500. Introduction. In this study session, you will be acquainted with the circumstances in which the English language regained its lost status as official language of England. The session will provide insights into the factors that contributed to the reestablishment of English after its displacement for 200 years by French as the official language of England. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to explain the factors that promoted the re-establishment of English. English language, regain of functional status. As noted in the previous session, King John lost Normandy to the English crown in 1204. The era of divided allegiance was over. As if that was not enough, the King of France announced by a decree of 1204 to 1205 that he had confiscated the lands of several nobles who had their abode in England. When families who had estates in both countries were compelled to give up one, most of them preferred to retain their larger holdings in England while giving up what they had in Normandy. Such families which had given up what they had in Normandy then began to pay full allegiance to England. The linguistic effect of this is significant, as allegiance to England gradually translated to allegiance to the English language. The reaction against foreigners, which engendered national feelings, was another factor which favored the re-establishment of English. The coalition of anti-foreign forces under the leadership of Simon de Montfort embarked vigorously on a campaign tagged England for the English. This campaign, as expected, inspired national consciousness in the people. The outcome of this opposition was the Barons' War, 1258 to 1265, during which time the foreigners were driven out of England twice. Another strong factor that promoted the ascendance of English was development of a positive attitude to English vis-a-vis French, to the point that around 1300, the mother tongue of the children of the nobility was in most cases English. Since the French-speaking Normans now saw themselves as English people, having given up their French estates and citizenship, it was unreasonable for them not to embrace the English language. The emergence of a positive attitude to English at this time is expressed by Bogg and Cable, 1978 to 137, in the following words. It is interesting to note the appearance at this time of an attitude that becomes more noticeable later, the attitude that the proper language for Englishmen to know and use is English. Another factor which causes a decline in the prestige of French and which favored the ascendancy of English was the growing idea that Anglo-French was not good French. Out of the 4 major dialects of French that existed during the Middle Ages, for example, Norman, Picard, spoken in the northeast, Burgundia in the east, and the Central French of Paris, the Norman French used in England, which of course must have been influenced by its contact with English, ranked lowest in terms of prestige. Another important factor that boosted the prestige of English was the rise of the middle class, as Bogg and Cable, 1978 to 141, rightly claim. The importance of a language is largely determined by the importance of the people who speak it. Towards the end of the Middle English period, a shortage of manpower to run the economy of England brought about an improvement in the conditions of service of the laboring classes. The shortage of workers was precipitated by an outbreak of epidemics which between 1348 and 1349 ravaged most parts of England, leading to a high death toll that largely affected workers, a phenomenon commonly referred to as the Black Death. The effect of so great a calamity was naturally serious, and in one direction at least are fully demonstrable. And in most epidemics, the rich suffered less than the poor. The poor man could not shut himself up in his castle or break himself up to a secluded manor. The mortality was accordingly greatest among the lowest orders, and the result was a serious shortage of labor. This is evident in the immediate rise in wages. The changes in the socioeconomic fortunes of the members of the middle class, as explained above, also invariably affected their language. English thus began to regain its relevance as prestige. The functional status of English, especially in the official domains, became gradually entrenched from the beginning of the 14th century. Unlike in the past, much of the literature of England now began to be kept in English. In 1349, English became the language of the grammar school. In 1362, Parliament was opened for the first time in English. This formally marked the recognition of English as the official language of England. In the same year, English became the language of the judiciary. Study session summary. After 200 years of the use of French as official language of England, a wind of change began to flow. The Norman overlords that displaced the English nobles after the Norman conquest of 1066 were confronted with the challenge of giving up their estates either in England or France, a situation that forced many of them to drop their allegiance to France. Coupled with this was the rise of the middle class, which engendered national consciousness among native English speakers. French gradually declined in prestige and status, while English gradually regained its lost glory as official language. This is the end of study session 7. Thank you very much for listening.